This episode of Techzilla is sponsored by Bex, different by choice, Domain.com, and Gobi, global mobile internet powered by Qualcomm. Coming up on today's show, Pat's on vacation and Garnett steps in, HTPC or Xbox 360, which is the better media PC, and more RAM should be better, right? So why does 4 gigabytes of RAM run slower than 2 gigabytes? Also, your digital camera questions are answered. We collect all of your questions about digital cameras, great and small, and put CNET digital cam expert Lori on the job of answering them. We've got answers to those questions and a whole lot more. So kick off your shoes, crack open a cold one, and put your chair in lounge mode, because Techzilla starts now. Hey everyone, welcome to Techzilla. I'm Veronica Belmont.
And I'm not Patrick, I'm Garnet Lee.
This is an interesting change.
I know, I like it. I like how I got Patrick's side.
Well, the lighting is set for me here.
I heard you have very special lighting requirements. It's in your contract, right?
Yeah.
That's an awesome contract.
Yeah, and unlimited Diet Cokes. Anyhow, just to inform those of you who might not know, Garnet is the managing poopah.
Managing poopah? I think I'll just stick with executive editor.
Executive editor over at oneup.com. Head honcho you are.
Oh.
That's my Yoda impression. You like that?
Very nice.
It wasn't very good, I'm sorry.
I'm going to go apprentice next.
But speaking of which, were you at the Force Unleashed opening last night?
No, Monday Night Football, come on.
Yeah.
Priorities.
I know. How excited about that game are you, though?
The Force Unleashed?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm very excited about Force Unleashed. It kind of has gone back and forth. People have been excited about it at first, but then it sort of cooled off. I think people thought, oh, you're just going to do the same things over. You get to be a badass Jedi. That's a pretty cool thing to do over and over. I don't know. I think it's cool. And the story. Don't underestimate the power of the story. If you're a Star Wars geek, you're going to dig the story.
Yeah, totally. I didn't get to go either because I had zombie makeup for a different shoot on yesterday, and when they took it off, there was like Vaseline all stuck in my hair, so it wouldn't get stuck to my hair, so I had to spend the whole night.
Can you imagine going to the Star Wars Force Unleashed?
That would not make any sense, but it would have been hilarious.
Awesome.
So I had to get all that stuff out. Did you know that cornstarch is really good at getting Vaseline out of your hair? Cornstarch, just kind of work it into the hair, then you shampoo, and then you put more cornstarch in your hair,
Doesn't
and then
that
you
make your hair into paper mache?
Well, you kind of look like an old person in like a Broadway play. You know how they put like stuff in their hair to make it gray?
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of how I looked. I got to see myself in 50 years.
I expect pictures or it didn't happen.
I'll post those shortly. Anyhow, another game that recently came out to throngs of adoring folks is Spore.
Wait. Throngs of adoring folks? Have you been reading the internet lately?
I have been. Well, this is the thing.
They're not really adoring it so much.
So I've played.
Okay.
I've played.
So in other words, you got it to install.
I just have to give, I got it to install. I have to give a little bit of background on my Spore addiction.
Okay.
Whenever they announced Spore, I don't know how many years ago it was, 3 years ago they first started talking about it, E3.
Right. About 3.
I was really, really excited for it, and I was on Buzz Out Loud, and every day I'd be like, oh my god, Spore is going to be so cool, and they kept pushing back the date, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to stab my eye out with a fork if it doesn't come out. And I did the Spore Celebrity thing too, which was really fun, and played it. Am I missing something? Because I'm just not having that much fun.
Well, I think that that's kind of a general consensus of folks who had really high expectations for it. And we interviewed him, and he was actually talking about how each of the individual pieces, what could have been a game in their own, but they wanted to make sure that what they did was not overcomplicated because it's supposed to be taken as a game overall.
Well, see, this is the thing. It's like the software version of the Wii. In my mind, it's like, okay, this is a great game for casual gamers. This is a great game for everyone and their family. It's for gamers who actually spend a lot of time playing like real-time strategy games or something to that effect. It's like, I have 3 vehicles that do stuff.
And you get really locked into paths. You know, if you go vegetarian, then of course you're locked into religion. When you get to the middle part, you're like, why? I don't want to be a religion guy.
I couldn't figure out that as I was playing military that I couldn't buy off other nations. You know, that I couldn't pay them off. I kept throwing money at them. I'm like, why aren't they coming to my side? I don't understand. There's nothing that ever says really throughout the game that once you pick a mode, that's what you have to stick in, right?
So we got to talk about the DRM for a second, right? But before we get to that, before we just bash on Spore. Spore is really cool. Like, one of the things about Spore that we shouldn't underestimate is all of the sharing of the Sporepedia stuff, all the created material that like propagates through the game. So you're playing, and there's sort of this other culture that develops of, hey, I just beat the heck out of your civilization or your creatures when they joined my game. That part's really cool, and I think having that all interwoven is part of the reason that the game pieces weren't quite as, you know, heavy-duty hardcore.
Yeah.
And plus, they want to get lots of people into it.
I get it, and I understand that, and I can see how it's fun. I just can't, I'm not really feeling that draw to keep playing it.
I agree. I agree. Now, if you want to get a lot of people into it, why do you put the DRM in there? I mean, the DRM in this game is crazy. If you don't know about the DRM yet, so first of all, you only get to install the game 3 times before you have to call back to EA and say, can I please install this game again? My system crashed. Oh, man. But like, even scarier for me is that for each version of the game that you want to play differently, for instance, if you and I live to, like you and Ryan want to play, let me not put that out there, if Ryan and her want to play their own characters, they each have to buy a copy of the game. That's $50 each.
That's hard for families.
I have not seen a PC game like that before.
Yeah.
You know, where you can't just have multiple. I'm not saying at the same time. Like, if you want to sit down and log in and play Veronica, and he wants to sit down and log in and play Brian, wait, you can't do that? That's silly. Come on, EA. Come on, fix that. Fix it.
Maybe they will. I mean, I think a lot of people are making a big uproar about the whole thing. So there's, there's a chance that they'll put some fixes in. But, the other stuff happened this week, to be sure. New Zunes.
Oh, I love that blue.
New Zunes.
That blue is so
really
pretty.
hot. I want the blue pretty badly, I have to say.
It's gorgeous. It's a perfect color blue.
Yeah, and now that I have my gaming PC, I actually have a system that can run the Zune Marketplace and all the software and everything.
So have you seen the new software? Because evidently it's the hotness. I have not gotten a chance to see it.
I haven't seen it yet because it just came out today when we're shooting here on Tuesday. So we're going to take a look at it this week, and then we're going to do a whole review on it for next week's show.
I'm so eager to see it, because if it's as good an upgrade as iTunes 8 was, boy, I tell you what, those two are really starting to bang on each other.
Yeah, no, I think people need to give Zune a little more attention, personally.
I love it.
They're great devices. Anyhow, we'll move on, because this show is about helping you guys with your questions, and so I think we have some answers to give out to you people out there. So last week we answered a question from Bastion about a multi-monitor and KVM setup for his machine. We recommended a few options, including a USB-based display adapter, but a wave of you, and I'm talking tons of you, berated us for not also suggesting Synergy.
So yeah, here's a sample of an email that we received. David writes, if you still want to get all the screens at once, then Synergy is the way to go. It supports PC, Mac, and Linux. It just requires all PCs to be on a LAN, and it's free. We also had Kevin write in, and he said, I have a suggestion for a multi-monitor software solution that puts KVMs to shame, and it's free. It's called Synergy. It enables one mouse and keyboard hooked up directly to one of your machines to interact with all your PCs. So in the same manner as you would experience like a single PC with dual screens, you can chain up as many PCs and monitors as you want via the software, and then have them all controlled, one keyboard, one mouse.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And then finally we got one from Mike, and he said, you said that a great way to use multiple computers with one keyboard and mouse was a KVM switch. However, this would cost money. Check out Synergy. It's a multi-platform open source project that allows you to use one keyboard and mouse across multiple machines. It's difficult to explain, but check it out. Yeah, that was a lot. We got a lot of email, and that's not all of it, but it's a pretty good cross-section of what we got. So, what, you may ask, are they talking about? Well, Synergy is virtual desktop software. It's similar to some of the stuff Pat's talked about back in episode 46. Of course, everyone knows exactly what episode 46 is. Raj will have that in the show notes, right, Guy? However, it works over LAN, so that lets you know over a virtual KVM operation, since you operate all the machines with Synergy installed with a single mouse and keyboard. Ooh, sweet. And cross-platform, so Linux, OS X, and Windows should all be good. However, I was looking on the website, there's always a however. They say that the OS X support is a little bit on the shaky side. So I was trying to think of it, I was going to try to use it at home because I've got kind of an interesting setup. I actually posted this question to the forums because I've been talking about my issues with KVM switchers lately and how I bought the wrong one. I've been trying to get rid of it. Now I want to find a better one because I've got my MacBook Pro and then I've got my gaming PC. And I've got a monitor set up to the gaming PC. And I don't really need to share the monitor with the MacBook because that's mostly when I'm at home just for checking email and stuff. Okay, gotcha. So I don't need to share the monitor there, but I would like to share the mouse and the keyboard. So what I'm wondering is, will that setup work with something like Synergy? They're both over the same wireless network. So I imagine that as long as the mouse and keyboard are connected to one of them over the wireless network. See, I think the fallacy there is that you would imagine that it would work. I know, you know how that goes. Don't imagine things will work in the PC world, especially you got one that's on Vista, right, and one that's on OS X. No, actually, the gaming PC is XP. Okay, but still, okay. So one Windows box and one Mac box. I don't know. Why don't you just get a hardware switch? I mean, what was wrong about the switch? Long story, right? Well, yeah, this is kind of a long story, but I got the wrong kind of switcher for. I wanted DVI, and I got it for VGA. Okay. So I want it both. I want it to be a DVI switcher, not a VGA. I think hardware switch can be the easiest solution for that to me. Yeah, so I just got to buy the right one. Anyhow, we want some time to thank one of the sponsors of the show, Beck's, the #1 German export beer. Beck's Beck's universe of choice. Got a relationship issue, a career dilemma? Who needs professional advice when you've got the insightful perspective of loyal Beck's drinkers? At becksbeer.com, you'll find the universe of choice, a live polling engine that lets you submit any issue or life dilemma to the community of Beck's drinkers for real-time voting. Log on to becksbeer.com for full details, and you'll leave a more enlightened person. Welcome to this week's Freebie download pick, a free program that we find useful, fun, or incredibly interesting. This week's pick, Bart PE. If you're the go-to guy when people have Windows-related issues, you definitely need to get yourself a copy of Bart PE, short for Bart's Pre-Installed Environment. Bart PE will allow you to build a rescue disk and lets you boot a copy of Windows off a CD, or if you're more adventurous, a USB flash drive. What that means is that you can load up Windows up on even a damaged machine, even if the hard drives are unresponsive or malfunctioning. Plus, with Bart PE's plugins, you can also install additional software as part of the boot CD that will allow you to run data recovery operations, antivirus scans, or diagnostic tests on the hard drive. Now, while a Linux boot CD can do many of the things I just listed, being Windows-based, Bart PE also allows you to perform operations like accessing very large, greater than 2 terabyte NTFS volumes, or accessing volumes that are not seen by the BIOS like some fiber channel drives. Active Directory support, remote control over other machines using VNC or remote desktop. All you need to do is provide a legitimate copy of Windows XP Home or Pro and the actual copy of any software you wish to include into your Bart PE Windows boot CD. So if you need an emergency copy of Windows ready to run at a moment's notice or a software tool to recover stricken PCs, give Bart PE a try.
Hey Veronica, but we do some of that help in need thing that we do.
Ooh, the help in need thing. So I was wondering, do you use your Xbox 360 as a media center?
That's a definite sort of. I've been going back and forth between my 360 and my PS3. It really kind of depends just which one I'm on because they both stream stuff from my computer very well.
That's true. Well, we've got a question from Joe who can't seem to decide between an Xbox 360 or a home theater PC that he wants to build himself.
Okay.
He says, I want a media manager for my TV, and I'm torn between getting an Xbox 360 or building my own small form factor HTPC. My TV is SD, and I don't plan on upgrading anytime soon, so HD functionality is not a major issue. However, multi-format playback functionality is.
Okay, so I think on those 2 points right there, he's already thinking HTPC, right? Because small form factor is going to go to HTPC.
Well,
and
the Xbox is still pretty small, relatively speaking.
Yeah, for a toaster oven.
It's only like this high.
Yeah, but I can get one of those small Asus enclosures and have like that really nice box. It's very smooth finish on it, looks clean. Stick it out of the way in my media center.
Okay, let's get to the rest of his question. He says, I've heard that the 360 is a robust media center device, and I think that using that and as an excuse to get spousal acceptance factor up high enough to justify getting one. But I ask you, how does the 360 stack up to an HTPC for media center applications?
Well, I think it's all become clear now, right? He wants to get a 360 in order to play some games, so go for it, dude. Because the 360 is going to handle your streaming. I mean, if you want to stream stuff off of the media center extender, it does a fine job. It's all built in. It's very easy to set up. You're not going to have any problems getting it.
The interface is really nice too.
Yeah, it's really easy to use, so it's going to do a great job. If you're really looking for an HTPC answer, you're going to get more versatility out of the box. I mean, it's upgradable. You can install different operating systems in it. It's a very nice little clean aesthetic to it. It's kind of a which one are you really looking for sort of thing.
Right,
the other
so if
thing
you want
is,
to, yeah, go ahead.
Go HTPC, and I can put a web browser on my screen.
True. That is true. That is true. All right, so I guess that then really it's mostly between, do you want to have the ability to maybe play games on your off time?
Right.
I mean, you can still update for different formats through the Xbox because since you are using Windows Media Extender, you can update Windows Media Player to support like
right, you just run the stream out. You're just going to run the stream out to your box.
So you're still going to need a PC for that anyway. So, I mean, an Xbox is what, $200 now?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, I mean, that's almost cheaper if you already have a PC that you want to be running off of, running the streaming off of, than building a whole new HTPC.
I think the secret question here is, do you want to play Spore or do you want to play Gears of War 2? Right? I mean,
that is the question.
Isn't that really the question here? Because that's kind of the difference.
All right, fair enough. Anyhow, I think it's time we took another video email. Take it away, Frank.
Why is it that when I have 4 gigs of RAM in my computer, it's much slower than when I have 2 gigs of RAM? It does this for XP, Vista, Ubuntu, even 64-bit versions.
Sounds kind of tricky, but from the sound of it, you probably have 4 1-gigabyte sticks of RAM. When you have 2 gigabytes of RAM installed, only 2 of the 4 memory slots are taken up. So that's these 2 guys right here. Here's the 4 memory slots. But when you bump up the total to 4 gigabytes and 4 memory slots, your performance is going to go down.
Right, so the first thing you want to check is whether or not you're running mismatched pairs of RAM. And you can tell that real simply is whether or not you have the exact same brand. It's even important sometimes to have them of the same bin, manufactured at the same time.
Right.
All modern DDR-capable motherboards can support dual-channel operation. That's where a pair of identical RAM sticks are accessed using 2 data channels instead of 1, right? So now, if you're using a mismatched pair of RAM, that dual channel will default to single-channel operation, even if you're only using 2 2GB modules. You want to ensure that they are a matched pair to ensure dual-channel operation. What all that means is that even if you switch, so right now he's got 4, so that would be 2. That would be. We probably has 4 1 meg.
Right, that's what we're thinking about.
Right,
he has
now.
4 1 GB.
Which means that
sticks
both
on here.
So if you're setting those up, the gold is 1 channel and the black is 1 channel. So if he went to 2 gig sticks, then you'd only have 1 set full, and that's always been a faster alternative. Always back to when Enforce started doing this dual channel thing.
So if he wants to crank it up, he probably just needs to get higher RAM cards, right?
Larger size.
Yeah, larger
right.
size.
If you went to a larger size, which would mean fewer sticks, and you wouldn't have as many of the slots full. For some reason, ASUS boards back in the day were notorious about this. If you filled all 4 memory slots, it would just slow the controller down really significantly.
Another issue you might be running into is that some of the memory controllers will actually slow down the memory timings. This is a known issue on AMD-based boards, where having all your RAM slots filled up will drop the command rate speed to T2 as opposed to T1, with only 2 slots filled with matching RAM. It's only for compatibility issues, that's the big problem. FYI, the command rate is the time needed between the chip select signal and when commands can be issued to the RAM module IC.
Now, if you have a BIOS that will let you adjust RAM timings, you can jump into the BIOS and play around with that manual setting through the command rate. Warning though, if you mess it up, you could totally bollocks your system, not be able to get it to start, and be back into that BIOS trying to figure out what you messed up. So here are your options. Check and see if you're running matched pairs. If not, you're gonna have to replace them and get matched pairs. 2, live with the 2 gigs of RAM, or and drop 2 gigs out, which might help. Manually tweak the settings, or just buy 2 identical sets of 2 gig.
So do you think that's his problem?
I don't know. See, my concern is that if you're talking 20 minutes on a Vista start, I think that this is like a 5 or 6 minute issue. 20 minutes tells me that there's something else wrong. And I'm going to guess that you maybe have a device driver that's bad, or maybe a device that's being unidentified, some sort of weird networking connection that's not being connected. Sometimes if you have a network drive that's mapped, it'll try and find that drive every time you boot, and if it's not there, then it'll just sit there and go, where's this drive?
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
And it takes it a long time to time out from that. So what I would do is try this. There's some help on the Microsoft site as far as doing a startup repair. And you can do this out of the F8 menu when you boot. This is go into Microsoft Help. You'll be able to look it up. But look for the F8 help menu. You'll do a custom boot. You're going to go in there and select System Restore. But you're not going to restore the system. You're just going to do a startup repair. And it should fix any damaged command lines in your startup. If it doesn't, it also gives you a log and it'll let you know what's going on in your startup that you can analyze with one of your more techie friends.
That sounds like a good idea, because that doesn't sound so hot.
Yeah, 20 minutes is too long for just a memory problem.
Seriously. Anyhow, hope that helps. And if any of you out there in audience land have suggestions for Frank, please send us in an email to techzilla@revision3.com. Now, if you want to get your 15 seconds of internet fame, send us a video. All you need to do is record yourself in front of a video camera asking a question no longer than 15 seconds. Try to keep it under that limit. Then load them up to YouTube and email us a link with a video question in the subject line. No attachments. No attachments. No. It's time now to thank one of our sponsors, Domain.com. Attention Techzilla fans, Domain.com has an awesome new deal that many of you will be excited about. Have you been jonesing for an iPhone, perhaps? Well, Domain.com is giving away $500 Apple gift cards to a few lucky Techzilla fans, and when you purchase a domain, hosting, or any other service, you're automatically entered into a bi-weekly drawing. There's no limit to the number of purchases or entries, so if you register a new domain and transfer some of your existing domains to Domain.com, you have a better chance of winning. Plus, Techzilla fans can use the coupon code TECH1, that's TEK1, to save 25% on domain registrations, domain transfers, and hosting. That's domains for under $7. Get over to Domain.com to enter to win a $500 Apple gift card today. See the rules and enter for your chance to win at www.domain.com/Techzilla. That's www.domain.com/Techzilla. Remember, Domain.com. It all starts with a great domain.
Looks like it's time for another website we just can't get enough of, a website that we just can't stay away from because it's too useful, too funny, or just too darn irresistible. This week's pick, GetRidOfThings.com. So this is a do-it-yourself guide dedicated to helping you prevent, eliminate, or remove common annoyances from your life. This website has it all. If there's anything you could get rid of, like Oily skin, student loans, clogged drains to spam, this site will give you a step-by-step instruction on how to make your life a little easier. Run by a team of contributors, GetRidOfThings.com categorizes your troubles into topics like personal hygiene, gardening, stains, computers, wily co-hosts, and a whole lot more. Annoying trick-or-treaters, not a problem. Insomnia threatening to ruin your life? Get rid of it with the help of some tips courtesy of GetRidOfThings.com. So some of the solutions might seem like common sense, but the site is really well organized. You might even find an answer to a problem you'd forgotten you had. So head over to GetRidOfThings.com today.
If you're in the market for a new digital camera or just have a question about the best way to operate the one you have, we've got a treat for you. Over the past few weeks, we'd asked you to send in your digital camera questions for us to ask today's guest, CNET's digital camera expert, Lori Grunin. Welcome back to the show, Lori.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How are you in New York over there?
Okay, having lovely weather for a change at least.
That's nice, that's nice. So you ready for our roller coaster of questions?
Hit me.
All right, our first one comes from John. He wants to know, I keep expecting that 16:9 and GPS will become standard options on cameras. GPS and picture taking seem like a natural fit, and I'd think that with HD TVs becoming so hot, cameras will follow suit and use 16:9 as the new picture standard. Am I looking for these to be common too soon, or am I simply wrong about this? I'd really like to buy a good digital camera that has 16:9, GPS, and 10 times or better zoom. So, what do you think?
Well, first of all, 16:9 is actually a common feature in most digital cameras these days. It's not the default because they're actually just letterboxing, meaning they're cropping the bottom and the top of most standard aspect ratio pictures. So you generally don't want to shoot in 16:9. However, lots of cameras, they offer HDMI out or a component octopus cable to output to your television. I don't think a lot of people are actually viewing their pictures on their HD TVs. So I think it's something that you're lucky if you want it. All the cameras have it, but I don't know that it's as popular as you want it to be.
And what about what about GPS?
GPS, I happen to completely agree with you on GPS. It hasn't gotten into a lot of cameras yet. It's only gotten into some crappy ones. However, the first decent camera, and I say decent, I haven't reviewed it yet, but I expect it to be pretty good, is the Nikon P6000, which has integrated GPS. iFi has the iFi Explore, which has, it's actually not GPS. They're using a different system. They're triangulating Wi-Fi. So it's a different method, and it's not as good for rural areas as, say, GPS would be. However, Nikon is coming out with their GPS cameras, and I expect it to be very popular in 2009 and beyond. That said, it's not something you want to put in all cameras because there's a price and a performance overhead that the GPS imposes. So expect to see it in more expensive and better point-and-shoot cameras.
So it's probably going to be more on the expensive side, and he should probably give it a little while if he is willing to spend that kind of money.
Exactly. And until then, there are third-party add-on solutions that you can use.
All right, sounds good. Our next question comes from Kevin about digital camera and camcorders. I was looking into getting a digital camera or camcorder to record video on an upcoming trip in about a month or so. I saw and liked the Flip Video Ultra and Minnow cameras, but would like expandable memory since I would like to record more than an hour of video on my week-long trip, and hopefully a better resolution. Any suggestions for devices below a $250 price point? And he says under $200 would actually be optimal. That would be better.
Yeah, probably under $150 would be even better.
Free!
What can I say?
Hey, why not? What the heck?
In that price range and with those criteria, you basically have two options. One is the RCA Small Wonder, and the other is the Kodak ZI-6. I'd go with the Kodak. The RCA is a VGA camcorder. The Kodak is 720p HD. They're the only two that have SD slots for your memory. So that's it. Those are your options.
Those are the options. What do you think of the Flip Video?
I think it's a temporary market, meaning that the market exists because of the price point. Once the regular camcorders can come down in price, I think they'll deliver better quality with the same features. The older manufacturers just haven't really gotten the market yet, in the sense that they don't understand that those people want a slightly different design. You see a lot of retrofitting of the older traditional styled models that, and then they just sort of slap in a flash slot and say, here's our YouTube camcorder. But so I think it's just going to take a little while, and eventually that will cease to become sort of a market on its own.
Excellent, good to know. Our third question is from Cameron, and he wants to know, I'm trying to take pictures of very small, intricately detailed watch movements for my job to sell online, and I wanted to know what I need to be looking for when buying a camera. I've got a Sony DSC S500 and it has a macro mode. I've made my own light box and know how to use a tripod with a timer set so I don't touch the camera when taking the picture, but it's just not getting the job done. Please help.
Okay, well, there's a lot in that question.
Yes.
In part because I don't know exactly what you mean by getting the job done. However, I can probably guess that the problem is your photos aren't sharp enough, and that you either can't get close enough to what you're photographing, or you can't crop in the photos enough. Any one of those issues are because you're using basically a budget point-and-shoot camera that's not designed remotely for what you're trying to make it do.
So it'll do macros, but it's not going to be real high-quality looking macros, right?
Correct. The lenses on the cheap point-and-shoots are not very good at all. And the lens, first of all, that camera can only focus as close as 2 inches. And for the type of stuff that you're photographing, you probably want to be able to get closer. And if you look at the specs of other cameras, chances are you probably want something, some of them can get down as close as, say, a 1/2 inch or 4/10 of an inch, and that's probably where you want to be looking. However, that said, if you're doing this for work, I wouldn't skimp on the budget, and I would get probably a relatively inexpensive digital SLR that you can get a really good lens for. You can get a macro-specific lens, and that will make a huge difference in the sharpness in the photos you're taking. Also, you may want to think, you use the timer, and that's really smart. Some of them come with remotes so that you're not sort of tethered to the timer, as it were, set it up and then 2 seconds, and this way you can just stand away and click. So I'd probably go with either a cheap digital SLR. You can get a good old digital SLR, say like the Canon EOS 20D or 10D. They're several generations old, but they're still very good cameras. And if you get a really nice lens with it, that should solve a lot of your problems.
That seems to be the case for a lot of different cameras and a lot of different specific things that you're doing with a camera. It's really all about the lens that you get, not so much as the body of the camera. Is that true?
Absolutely. The body's important, but a really good lens on a mediocre body can give you much better photos than a really bad lens on a great body.
And also just taking the time to learn how to use your camera properly. That probably helps a lot too.
Yes. Read the manual, people.
Right, read the manual. The next question comes from Ben, and he asks, I was wondering about the Lumix G1 camera. Overall, I don't have a great understanding about higher end cameras, and I want more information. What is the difference between micro 4/3 system and non-micro?
First of all, micro 4/3 versus 4/3, exact same sensors. The difference is the size of the lens mount. Micro 4/3 uses a much smaller lens mount than the traditional, it's what, 3 years old? The traditional 4/3 mount, and that enables them to make smaller cameras. Now, the other difference between a micro 4/3 camera and a 4/3 camera is that 4/3 is a digital SLR standard, while micro 4/3 is not. Basically, for micro 4/3, what they specify is they've taken out the mirror box. Now, the mirror box in an SLR is what lets you see directly through the lens and get a real-time view of your scene. Micro 4/3 cameras are going to use electronic viewfinders. Those are like little LCDs that are in the viewfinder display. And they have their drawbacks, and a lot of people have trouble getting used to those. In any case, the bottom line is the micro 4/3 cameras let you have interchangeable lenses, but essentially they are still point-and-shoot cameras. They have more in common with, say, the mega zooms, like the Panasonic FZ28 or the Canon PowerShot S5IS, than they do with digital SLRs in that respect. Therefore, one of the disadvantages, as I said, is the electronic viewfinder. They tend to black out while you're shooting, so you shoot, and just like the LCD, while the camera's busy writing a file to the disk or to the flash memory, you don't see anything. With a digital SLR, because it's got a mirror that flips up and down to redirect the light towards the viewfinder, you always get a real-time picture. That is one of the major differences and, as a lot of people would say, disadvantages of the micro 4/3 system, as well as competing systems that are coming down the road. Eventually, I think every manufacturer is going to have one of these interchangeable lens on a point-and-shoot body type systems. I don't know that there's going to be. I don't think there's going to be a standard. I think they'll all have different, competing mounts and stuff. However, one of the advantages about these versus the digital SLRs is that they can be a lot smaller because they don't have the mirror box, which takes up a lot of space.
All right, excellent, good to know. And our next question comes from Steve, and he wrote, is there any advantage to a heavier DSLR aside from the thought that it is built better? Specifically, does it make it more stable to shoot with? That's kind of a strange question.
No, actually, it's a very interesting question because it's a problem that I frequently have with point-and-shoot cameras is that they're too light and, you're shooting and your hands fly all over the place. I consider this one of those Goldilocks questions. Some cameras are too light and some cameras are too heavy and some of them will be just right. It depends upon you, and that's why I always tell people that when you're shopping for a camera to pick it up and try it out and see how it feels. I tend to find cameras like the Rebel series a little too light. I prefer the slightly heavier bodies of, say, the Nikon D80 or D90. Yeah, there's the whole issue with how well they're built, et cetera, but from the pure standpoint of how much they weigh and how comfortable they are, I find there's that middle range of bodies that, yes, if it weighs the exact right amount, you're going to be more stable. If you feel like it's too light, then it's moving with every slight shake of your body, whereas a heavier body, I find, can ground you a little, but then there are cameras like the Nikon D3 and the Canon 1D and 1DS series, which are really big, and they're so heavy that I find my hands are shaking trying to hold them up if I'm not braced.
So is there any direct correlation between quality and weight?
No.
That's totally wrong. Okay, so the heavier a camera is doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Just whatever is most comfortable.
The heavier cameras are heavier because they're bigger because they have the vertical grip built in. But for instance, say the Nikon D700 is extremely similar to the Nikon D3 body, but it just doesn't have that vertical grip built in, so it's smaller.
Good to know. All right, Lori, final question. This one says, I purchased a Canon Digital Rebel XT a few years ago, and I have been very happy with it. Recently, I was told that I am not getting the quality that's possible with the camera because the kit lens that came with the camera is relatively low quality. As an amateur photographer, is it worth it for me to invest in higher quality lenses? Can I get a noticeable improvement without spending as much on a lens as I paid for the camera? Well, this kind of goes back to to one of the other questions about, you can buy a pretty decent camera and a really good lens and take much, much better pictures.
Absolutely, and whoever told you that was right. The kit lens that came with the XT was not a very good lens. The more recent kit lenses, the Canon 18 to 55 IS, is a much better lens. It's not that expensive. I think you can get it for $200, but it's sharper, it's faster, it's bright, it's a little brighter. So, yes, I always tell people that you're always better off if you have a fixed budget, spending more on the lens and less on the body, in the proportional spending of things.
All right, awesome. Thanks again for helping us out on the show today, Lori. Thank you very much, and keep enjoying that New York weather.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Now, if you want the latest in digital camera news, reviews, and previews, check out Lori's work at CNET.com. A great place to check out if you're curious about buying a new camera, be a simple point and shoot or a digital SLR. It's time now to thank one of our sponsors, Gobi. Gobi gives you the freedom to go anywhere without fear of losing an internet connection. One wireless device built into your notebook that supports both EVDO and WCDMA GSM technology. In effect, the world is your hotspot. With Gobi's multi-mode support, you can get global connectivity without the hassle of extra data cards, dongles, or devices. Less to carry, fewer support issues, and a whole lot easier to handle. And it's even better for IT departments. Because Gobi gives you multiple carriers in one device that supports multiple technology and carriers, companies can now procure and support one notebook SKU for every user anywhere in the world. All right, you ready to tackle some more tech questions?
You bet, let's go.
Excellent. Our next one comes from Kwang in New Jersey. He says, I have two domains that I would like to point to one site. For example, mydomain.com and medomain.com. And I would like both websites to point to mydomain.com. What's the easiest way to do this? And by the way, what's the difference between an A record and CNAME for a domain? the short answer for the first part of your question is it just sounds like you need to forward the second domain to the first one. This is really easy to set up, and it really shouldn't take you more than a few moments. Just head over to your registrar like GoDaddy or domain.com, for example, and find the preferences for the name you want to forward. Then select forward and type in the address of the site that you want it to point to. So that's pretty handy.
Yeah, this is where having a good web interface for your registrar comes in really handy. It's very easy to surf through the menus. It should be totally self-explanatory.
Yeah, and that comes in handy if you have a domain that you haven't built a site around yet, or if you just want to send it to the main web page until you're finished. You can even point it to a domain that you don't own, which can be a hilarious bit of fun.
Or a way to make money.
That's true. Oh, don't tell them that.
I'm just
we don't need any
saying.
more squatters and farmers and links farmers and
All right, erase that
spam
from your memory banks. I never said it.
all that stuff. And the second part of your question is a bit more complicated. An A record simply points to an IP number. A C name points to a host or many hosts, essentially a DNS or a domain name server pointer, taking that fancy URL like veronicabelmont.com and have it point to another IP. You can use it in case you need to redirect many hosts to a new IP number, and if you're running different services like a web server or an FTP on the same IP. This isn't a huge issue now that this process can be generally pretty automated. So.
Right,
It's confusing. It's hard to wrap your head around all that stuff for me anyway.
And it seems like in the last few years, DNS updates have gotten out to the net fairly quickly, so I don't think it's become as big an issue as it used to be.
Yeah, so hopefully that helped answer your question.
Another question?
One more, perhaps?
Sure, let's do it.
One more? This is a fun one. David has a question about his old school audio gear. He says, I've been trying to get more serious about my audio gear, and I also have an affinity for the more vintage stuff for both aesthetic and budgetary reasons. While I'd love to listen to all my stuff on vinyl or on CD, the truth is that most of my music is in the form of MP3s on a first-gen PowerPC Mac Mini. I have it hooked up with a simple Y adapter to the RCA inputs on the Pioneer, but I feel like going through the headphone jack with an adapter might not be the best solution in terms of audio quality. In the opinion of an audiophile and an audio engineer, would investing in an external sound card improve my sound? So are you a big audio fan?
You know, I am a pretty big audio fan. I really enjoy my music, and I think it's really cool that David is using this gear because he's getting into it, and this is like the first step is to really get into it. So
yeah.
I think he's probably right that the Mac Mini sound card isn't going to do him any favors, but I'm not sure that with MP3s it's going to make that big of a difference. So let's go here first. What rate are your MP3s encoded at? And if you're going to go to lossless, then I think going into some of the external sound cards will do you some good. There's a nice M Audio one, but there's a lot of inexpensive cards that will give you a better improved signal-to-noise ratio.
Yeah, actually he did mention in his email, didn't make it into the final cut of this part, but he was planning on doing everything in lossless later.
Okay, so that's a big difference.
So he is going to be moving up to that at some point, because MP3, like we mentioned, is a really lossy format. You're losing a lot of the sound that's in there. So if you want to go lossless, then doing an external sound card would probably help you out a fair amount. And we actually have this little guy that we got sent in, this Pure Audio buddy right here. It's only 50 bucks. And it's from Andrea Electronics. Actually, it's 45 bucks, and you just pop the cap off right here and plug it into the USB drive. It has a couple of 1/8" jacks on the back for headphones and microphone, so it can power your stuff. Like if you have a headset that has the headphone jack and the mic jack on it, but it's not powered. I've had trouble using those in the past with my MacBook Pro.
So this is primarily to boost the signal output then?
Yeah, it's basically a tiny little external sound card. So it'd be good for on the road.
You gonna check it out?
Yeah, and we're gonna check it out this week and see how it works. It actually comes with some software that'll help you tweak the audio settings and kind of boost up different stuff. So on the go, it's not a bad little thing to have in your bag.
I'll be curious to see what you think about this.
Yeah.
And maybe David, if you want to get into it, you could always go analog. Go for it, dude. Get a turntable, get an old tube set. There's a lot of people that really do hear the warmth. It is a definitely different sound, especially if you're into, like me, I like some jazz music. If you like jazz, it's going to sound a lot richer, a lot warmer. You really will start to discern that difference. And don't overlook your loudspeakers. You're talking about headphones, make sure and get good headphones. And if you're listening to it over like real speaker system, make sure and get good loudspeakers. Yeah,
his speaker system actually is not too dissimilar from the ones that we have under the desk that Patrick always likes to pull out.
So Dave,
he found some good deals.
Go and invest, get on some of the good forums like the AVS forum or any of the other good audiophile places and start listening to speakers. Go around to stereo shops and just listen to speakers because there's so many different sound profiles and you have to decide what fits for the kind of music that you like. There's some speakers that sound great for rock and roll, and then you put chamber music on them, and they're very flat. They don't really work out so well, and vice versa. So get what you like, learn what your listening profile is, and then go for the equipment.
We could talk about this kind of stuff for a really long time,
and
definitely. About how to set up your room so that you don't lose any, you don't have any sound cancellation.
Absolutely.
And isolating yourself and making the sound space just a lot nicer and warmer. Anyhow, we digress. David also wanted to know if there were some other high-tech methods of improving his low-tech sound equipment. So if you guys have any suggestions out there, send them in to us at Texilla@revision3.com. We'll talk about them next week. And for all of you watching, we live on your questions. So like I said, Texilla@revision3.com. Tech help, product reviews, and how-tos. You ask us, we'll do it. But we need those emails. So don't be shy. Send them in to Texilla@revision3.com. And as always, you can visit our forums. You've been visiting our forums.
I go there.
Where are they?
They are at revision3.com/forums.
Good one. What's your username on there? Don't tell us. Don't tell us. We'll find you.
Okay.
Anyhow. Or do you remember?
It's Garnet Lee or something like that. I always use my name. I used
you don't
to
go incognito?
No, I used to do the incognito thing, and I decided, that was very silly. Like, I am who I am. I'm fine with that.
I'm Veronica Zilla. And don't miss this week's Pop Siren. Get the lowdown on all the cool stuff happening in Web 2.0 culture and in the pop and music scene. It's Cool Chicks redefining pop culture every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Oh, and be sure to check out Pop Siren Bites, which are smaller bits of awesome Pop Siren content every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you can be entertained all week long. They had me on the show last week. It was fun.
Wow, extra siren power.
Yeah, it was like a total girl party. It was great. Hey, and I want to thank Garnet for dropping by today.
And I'm going to thank Patrick for taking a vacation, because this has been a blast.
Yeah, he totally deserves it. And we'll definitely have you back again sometime.
Thanks.
Mayhaps, mayhaps. Anyhow, you can catch all of Garnet's work over at oneup.com, a great place for the latest in video gaming news, previews, and reviews. And hopefully Patrick won't be too jealous when he gets back.
Back? I thought we were going to tell him about this. Shh. Sorry.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
I'm Garnet Lee.
Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, you've been watching Texilla. So it looks like it's time for another website we just can't get enough of. Porn!
Especially since we got Google Chrome.
It's the best part about the Google Chrome browser. Secret porn mode.
That's a great song.
First you boot up your Google Chrome, then you surf over to your favorite porn. So crack open a case of Pop Rocks and do this thing and that thing, because Texilla starts out.
He pays his tuition by convincing financial institutions that if he didn't have a degree, it would have detrimental effects on the economy.
He is an honorary member of all 153 fraternities in the U.S. He once did a power hour in 7 minutes. In the summers, he interns as the CEO of Deloitte & Touche. When teachers call on him in class, it's usually because they need an answer to another student's question. Chris Lazinski is the coolest college student in the world.
Welcome to my dorm room. Since I have $500 to spare, obviously, and only one unfortunate outlet in my dorm room, I use the iPod gramophone to play my music. It has a timeless, sophisticated design, reminiscent of a porcelain toilet. I snap in my headphones like so, and out flurries a bounty of musical sounds for my fall 2008 chill playlist. It's a Sky Mall product fit only for the coolest college student in the world. That's me! I'm Chris Lazinski, and this was a Revision 3 Back to School Intern Survival Guide brought to you by the Adobe Media Player AMP.
With the Adobe Media Player, you can watch your favorite Revision 3 content and more, all in one place and anytime, anywhere. Go to the URL on the screen to download the free Adobe Media Player. Or, if you've already downloaded the Adobe Media Player, search Revision 3 exclusives and add your favorites today.